Hello and welcome to this week's YouTube video. Do you often wonder how to create soft brushwork? In this video I'm going to give you some simple tips for how to do this. I will use Ronnie as my demo painting. So let's get into the video. Firstly, before we start, I should say that your goal with soft painting is to interpret what you see in front of you. You should be looking to correctly describe the texture of your object. Ronnie's fur is incredibly soft, so it's fine for me to even exaggerate this. However, if you were painting something much more textural, like rocks, you wouldn't want to paint it softly. So think about the texture of your object before you attempt soft painting and ask yourself, is it appropriate? Number 1, painting alla prima. If you're going to attempt soft painting, you need to do your painting alla prima, which means all in one go. This doesn't mean that you have to paint it all in one sitting, although you can if you like, more that you need to get the bulk of your colour on in one layer. There are various methods for painting alla prima. You can do it section by section, via scumbling, or using the underpainting method. I'll discuss each one briefly. Section by section. Sometimes I use this method myself. It just means the painting emerges almost like a patchwork quilt, each area developed in its entirety and not moving on until the section you are working on is correct. I would advise care when using this method. It works when you have a painting with very obvious value, temperature and colour changes. It is a disaster if all these elements are very similar. You'll end up labouring over each section and overworking the painting. Scumbling. I also use this method a lot myself. This involves covering the whole canvas in a thin sketchy layer of paint. This then makes it easier to judge what you are looking at. You then go over the painting again with thicker paint to correct and/or develop the original sketch. You can see I have used this method in this painting. The values, temperatures and colours were all very similar, so it made it easier to get it right on the second attempt. I do not wait for the first layer to dry, I work wet on wet. As long as you keep your paint thin, sketchy and stiff on the scumbling layer, you won't have control issues on the second layer, even if you use a medium, which sometimes I do. Underpainting. If you want, you can do a full value underpainting and then paint your colour over the top. You can work on the overpainting with the underpainting wet or dry. It is up to you. But the important thing is that your overpainting is done in one wet layer, not multiple dry layers. I do not use this method, but I have done in the past. I have used a combination of methods 1 and 2 for this painting. Number 2, enough paint. There needs to be enough paint on your canvas so that you can pull it around. If you have too much, it is likely that you will lose control of your painting. Too little and you won't be able to pull that paint around. This is really something that takes practice because how much paint you can handle and how wet you have it is different for everyone. Number 3, edges. Painting alla prima enables you to manipulate your edges. This is really important for soft painting. You will not be able to manipulate your edges if you do not have enough paint on your canvas. In this painting of Ronnie, you can see I've really pulled the sections of the fur into each other. To do this, you'll need a long soft brush like an eclipse comber, and you'll want to try and keep it away from the solvent. If you do need to clean your brush, make sure no solvent remains on the hairs because it will take the paint off and make it hard to lay alla prima. I usually have a comber brush for my light values and one for my dark values. This means I don't have to keep cleaning them as often and will keep my colours cleaner. You then take the brush and pull one colour into the other. Don't try and pull white into dark values as you'll get a chalky effect. You'll need to mix up a bridging colour and pull both colours into this. Sometimes an eclipse comber is not the right brush to use and I use a flat brush like these ones by Artmaster. You need to use them like mini palette knives though and layer the paint on and pull your edges by spreading the paint around rather than trying to brush it. If your paint is relatively stiff, it will make this process much easier to do. The wetter your paint, the more likely you are to get in trouble pulling your edges about. Bear in mind though, not every edge needs to be pulled. I have a couple of really hard edges around the nose and tongue. Varying your edges between hard, soft and lost will really help your painting be more successful. Just ask yourself what type of edge is appropriate. Often it's just a bit of common sense. If you would like to know more about edges generally, then have a look at this video on my channel. Number 4, brushes. Your brushes are important, but they are also quite individual. What I like may not be what you like, but as a general rule, you will need 2 types of brushes. A workhorse that lays more paint easily, and a softer brush that allows wet on wet painting without taking the paint off. Bear in mind that these combers give a soft effect, and they may not be appropriate for using on heavily textured objects. Number 5, values. Where you have a very sharp value change, like I have in this area here, it is unlikely that you will want to paint that softly. Grouping your values closer together will make it easier to make an edge look lost. You can see in this area I go from dark value to a mid value. That edge was quite hard to lose because my values were not close enough together to make the transition seamless. I also had 3 temperature changes as well. I had to work really hard to pull that paint into that paint. I had to use all the things I have talked about in this area here, and getting that transition wasn't easy. Soft brushwork is something that you really have to work on, and very often edges in paintings are massively laboured over to get them to look how they look, but most artists don't tell you this. I hope you've enjoyed today's video and found it useful. Please like and subscribe if you can, and check out my website Sarah Halliday Art, where you will find examples of my work and also details of online classes that I run. Thank you for watching, and see you for the next one.